This is Report to Wyoming, and this morning we're going to talk about Lobbyist, the state legislature, and a recent training in Cheyenne that taught you how, as a citizen of Wyoming, to get your message through. Today is January 25th, and I'm Karen Snyder.
The First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution says that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
That's Suzanne Pauling, an experienced lobbyist with the Wyoming Coalition Against Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. And because of that experience and her success as a lobbyist, she was asked to address a day-long workshop in Cheyenne called the Citizen Lobbyist Training, designed to demystify the legislative process and teach citizens how to be effective in lobbying the Wyoming legislature on issues important to them. Suzanne Pauling started her presentation with a few words on the source of the term lobbyist.
Actually, the term lobbyist was coined at the Willard Hotel, which is an old hotel in Washington, D.C. It's the Willard Hotel right across from the White House. And guys basically used to hang out in the lobby of the Willard waiting for congressional people and the president to come in, have their cigars, have their drinks. They would approach them in the lobby and talk to them about legislation they were concerned about. So that's where they were in the lobby, the Willard, hanging out in the lobby, so they became lobbyists.
Over recent years, a lot of light has been thrown on lobbyists, mostly a negative light on abuses, and these days anyone who watches the evening news knows what K Street is. And I think that this light on the lobbyist probably has a positive and a negative aspect to it.
At first blush, I think probably the negative is that people are now a little bit more hesitant to trust lobbyists with their information, because do you have to pay them for the information? Are you getting something back for that information? But it's also, on the opposite side of that, is that it's made it more stringent. They've come up with more lobbying rules and regulations so that those kind of concerns aren't valid anymore. Like, you can't give gifts anymore. You can't take stuff from lobbyists. All you can do is get information. And it's also, I think, kind of opened up the fact that lobbyists exist, that they're there, and you kind of have to deal with them, the good and the bad. Like you said, nobody knew what K Street was, and everybody kind of heard, oh, K Street, Murdoch, Abrams, And I think that's what they think of lobbyists. In Wyoming, it's so different, though. I mean, we don't have really professional lobbyists. We have citizen lobbyists who really just are there to talk to them about the issues. And legislators also get training saying, if a lobbyist comes up to you and offers you something, don't take it. So, they even know it off the first bat that they can't take anything anyway if a lobbyist offered it to them. So even dinners are kind of looked down upon, those kind of things. So.
And you're here today to talk about how to lobby effectively. Top 2 points you want to make?
I can only do 2, huh? Okay. I would say be sure of your information, present it in a way that they can understand, and be polite and nice.
I attended the Citizen Lobbyist training because I thought it would be helpful in my work as a journalist. The training has been offered for about the last 13 years or so by the Equality State Policy Center. The ESPC exists to encourage civic participation in government and to hold government accountable. Sarah Gorin is an ESP board member. My impression, or what I came away with, or kind of early in the day really, was it's important to understand the legislator as a person. Mm-hmm. Put yourself in their shoes.
Well, we emphasize that so much at the training because most people are motivated to become involved in politics because they care passionately about a certain issue. And it's very easy to get wrapped up in that. And like they were saying, I think my issue is the only issue on the face of the earth, or I care so much about this is all I want to talk about. But from the legislator's point of view, they're dealing with 500 people who all think that same thing. And so it's not possible for everybody's issue to be their priority issue or the only thing that they want to listen to. So that's why we try to emphasize to people that you need to be concise, you need to be well-versed, you need to be able to get your message across in a short amount of time, and to realize there's a feedback loop here. It's not just you telling the legislator, I want you to do this. You want to talk with them about it and see where they're at, because maybe they have a family experience, a personal experience, something in their lives that's completely foreign to what you're thinking, and it's completely coloring their thinking, and unless you're ready to listen and find out what's going on here, you're never going to get anywhere. And so, like you're saying, it's a persuasive process, and in order to persuade, you have to be able to listen and understand what the other person is saying. And as I was mentioning, going around with candidates, people who are in office have usually had gone through a lot of experiences to be there. I mean, not just their own family and personal things, but the things they've heard people tell them as they knocked on doors in their district, things that people came to them with. And so those heavily influence how a legislator thinks. And so while you think you may have a very persuasive story, they may have a very persuasive story that's completely different.
Former Senator Ray Lynn Jobe from Fremont County has spent 12 years in the Wyoming legislature.
I think there are so many misconceptions about who we are and what we do and how we do things. And so I think the more we can get out there and explain and talk with people in a discussion like this morning, I think they understand.
Jobe knows how important time is to a busy legislator, and when it was her turn at the podium, she went straight to questions. One response found her considering whether she'd learned it all in her 12 years.
And I would tell you that I probably could have been there 20 years and said the same thing. It's a dynamic process. It's ever evolving. Your personalities are changing all the time. The issues are changing all the time. And when you're dealing with carbon sequestration, I mean, that's tremendously complex. And you need time and repetition with those to understand them, and then to understand the connections. And when you talk about taxes, like property taxes, people go, I want relief, but they don't understand that their relief might mean fewer revenues to state government, fewer revenues to the schools that they hold dear, and it might further damage our very poor tax structure in this state anyway. And so, all those connections, all the complexities, it just takes time.
Representative Mary Throne from Cheyenne made the same point, that the variety and number of different topics they need to know about is unending.
We deal with a wide variety of issues in the legislature, soup to nuts, healthcare, business issues, social issues, somewhat less weighty issues like state butterflies. So we deal with a lot of different topics and have to be able to react quickly and to learn quickly.
Throne is one of 4 current legislators who broke away from the day at the Capitol to panel a discussion. Also on that panel was Representative Bernadine Kraft, who says the education role lobbyists play is really important.
We rely on them. We rely on them for information. And as I believe I mentioned, the truly effective lobbyists give us both sides of the argument. They give it to us concisely, succinctly. And because we do not have staffs, because we are a citizen legislature, and because of the wide variety of issues we cover, we can't be experts on everything. And we really count on lobbyists as a great source of information for us.
A section of the training was dedicated to the importance of committee meetings.
Committee work is where the citizens can come and testify. It's where the lobbyists come and testify in the committee. And so if a complex bill is coming up, I'm going to find somebody that was on that committee, and I'm going to say, tell me what happened in the committee. Tell me what I need to know. If we don't rely on each other, we're not very effective.
If you want to be effective in the lobby, you have to build a relationship with your representatives and your senators before the session begins. And I encourage people to start looking forward to the next session in March or April, about the time the last session ends. And, it's easier then to talk to somebody, and we're going to give them our full attention. Whether they catch me in the grocery store, whether it's at the cleaners, or whether they invite me to lunch, or just to have tea in the afternoon. They have my full attention then. If they have that foundation, when they catch me in the lobby, and I recognize who they are and I know that something's important to them, I'm probably a little more tuned in.
Suzanne Pauling suggests if you really want a legislator to tune in, bring along someone that's really affected by the issue at hand.
Yes. As I said, it makes a huge difference to legislators when they actually hear from actual people infected by the legislation that they're looking at. I can tell them for days on end, that this isn't a good idea or this is a great idea because of my position on it. But until they actually hear from people that it affects directly, that have lived through it or are going to live through it, that makes a huge impact for them. And when they actually see people that have had to deal, with being abused or being battered, or their kids being abused or battered, I can tell them how bad it is, but until they actually hear it and see it, it makes a huge impact on them.
Dan Neal is the Executive Director of the Equality State Policy Center, and he is passionate about citizen participation in government.
Our basic approach is that, our group, one of our main missions is to encourage civic participation, because we think that the more people the legislators hear from, the better. We think they need to hear from more average citizens and from more nonprofit groups and other similar organizations, because we know the special interests pay good money to have highly skilled lobbyists in Cheyenne to represent them. And our theory here is that if people understand the process better, then the public can begin to represent its own interests. We really urge nonprofits to consider this because, while they're limited in their ability to participate in electoral politics, they're not limited in their capacity to lobby for an issue, or if there's a bill they're particularly interested in, whether it's workers' compensation or quality child care. I know there's been a great deal of interest in the potential prohibition of smoking in public places. So, the legislature, especially in a general session, can look at legislation that touches all aspects of our lives. And if people know how to participate, we think that legislators will get better feedback from their constituents, and the ultimate result will be better laws for the people of Wyoming.
This is Report to Wyoming. We'll be right back.